Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brenda Black with Georgia Municipal Association. I'm their claims liaison and manager. We have with us today Linda Judge from ACCG. She's their claims supervisor. And Brent Fairchild, he's with the City of Douglasville. He'll be here to give you his perspective from an employer's side on return to work programs. With that being said, Linda, you going to start it off?
Yes. Generally, when we talk about a return to work program, we want it for you to see it as a proactive way for the employer to help an injured worker either stay at work or return to work in a safe environment. And it's generally helpful to both the employee and the employer.
We'll talk a little bit about what are some of the benefits to the employer. And I'm going to just, you have your screen up and run through these, and then have Brent kind of share some things that he's done that he can see the results of this. Saves recruitment time and hiring costs for new and substitute employees, eliminates work delays and business interruptions. Co-workers are not required to perform extra duties to compensate for the absence of employees. It creates goodwill and positive image with the employees as the employer is perceiving a caring and concern. And that's extremely important for a successful program. Promotes better communication and relationship. So Brent, would you like to share a couple of things y'all have done in this area that's helped?
Yeah, the benefits to the employer with the City of Douglasville, what we've experienced just in the HR department that I work in. I personally don't do the recruitment, but they receive tenfold the efforts that we get with the Return to Work program. What this is doing, it's saving us time. We're not having to recruit near as many employees, keeping people on the job. So everybody benefits. HR can focus more on other programs and be able to get our employees in a whole lot sooner. And then the employer is perceived as caring and concerned. Our employees, the morale alone has showed. Our employees they feel like we actually care. They're coming to us for non-work related issues, actually coming to us and sharing with us multiple different items and topics. Huge benefit by having an effective return to work program. So
the benefits to the employee, they receive full or partial wages, or we try and get them as close to the pre-injury wage as we possibly can. It eliminates, it helps the employee remain active and mobile and shortens the recovery time. They maintain self-esteem. It maintains their morale and personal security, that being financial. And it eliminates stress, boredom, and depression. And it's an opportunity for the employer to use to cross-train employees when you have, for example, maybe a younger employee who's been injured, and he can maybe shadow someone who is more experienced and learn some new skills.
So before you go on, I got a question from Freddie Wiggins, and before I go on with his questions, just remind everybody that's participating today, the more you ask questions, the more you raise your hand, the better this is going to be. So thank you so much, Freddie, for being the person out here to ask a question. Do you have an offer of an employment? We have to offer an employee the same pay rate as when they, again, trying to see what the, as when they went out on workers' compensation? So do you have to offer the same pay rate as when they went out on workers' compensation? I think that's not true, right?
That's not true. We're going to cover that a little bit later, but no, you do not. The light duty position does not have to be at the same pay as the.
You would just need to supplement that with permanent part or temporary partial.
Partial benefits, yes.
Okay.
So Brent, do y'all have anything in place for this, or do you basically just take it case by case?
Most of ours is case by case. With every employee that comes to HR, we try to teach them and approach them as every case is different, because every employee is different. So we try to look at everything as its own case by case. With the city of Douglasville, we don't really fall under the partial wage. We do a salary continuation for 6 months. So our employees, it doesn't matter. It's not going to benefit them to get injured. We're still going to pay them the same rate, you know, for whatever it is, for up to 6 months. And then at that point, our insurance will take over. So the opportunity on the last slide here, talking about the opportunity to cross-train. For anybody that has maintenance and sanitation departments or anything like this, if any of your CAN employees or your refuse collectors that are riding on the back of the trucks, that's a great opportunity to get those guys in the cab of the truck to kind of learn routes and possibly set them on a track to get their CDL license, possibly become a sanitation driver or a commercial sanitation driver on down the line. That's one of the benefits that we have with our refuse collectors is setting them in the cab of the truck just so they can learn routes and understand how to operate the trucks. So
we talk about what light duty should be, and Brent said, you know, we've tailored it to the employee's physical needs. It can be flexible. It doesn't have to be the same days of the week. It can be totally different. It can you can pay them wages based on the light duty position. You do not have to pay them full wages when they're on light duty if they're not working their full duty job. It also gives the employee opportunity that they're still involved, which is what our goal is. We don't want them sitting home watching TV, listening to lawyer commercials. We really want them out there to stay engaged with the employer. So you have a lot of flexibility on light duty jobs. So it's something we really want you to look at. As Brent mentioned, you know, they tailor it to the employee's needs. So there's a host of things that can be done.
So Brent, as the restrictions change, do the job duties change in the past?
We do, and with our employees that we have, you know, if someone's, take for example an ACL tear or a severe back strain, those employees obviously can't do a lot of physical duties. However, you know, as their progression, as their stuff, their case progresses, we may take them from strictly filing or answering phones to maybe they're, you know, doing ride-alongs or something. I think of one of our PD officers that literally sat down and was answering phones. I mean, they were playing receptionists and doing intake. As they progressed, we had them doing ride-alongs and stuff along those lines. So definitely progressive discipline, or not discipline, but progressive return to work. Always reevaluating. I mean, staying in contact with the employees is very important. So
everyone wins when the employee returns to work. The injured workers return to their normal routines. Employers save money on hiring and training, and there's a decrease in the cost of actual workers' comp coverage.
So let's talk about a light duty program. Who should be involved? Department heads, supervisors, human resources, your claims examiner. Both of these programs have nurse case managers that can help you with that, and the attending physician. Under the Georgia statute, if you have a light duty physician, you need to get the attending physician to approve the physician so that everybody's on board that we're doing what his restrictions are. The job doesn't fall outside of his restrictions. So it's a good idea to, you know, write that up, let the doctor look at it, let him sign off on it. And at that point, you know, you department heads need to be in touch with the employees to discuss it and, you know, set up a start date. How do y'all do that in Douglasville?
So most of the claims come through myself. I'm the sole person when it comes through for City of Douglasville Human Resources Department. Myself, I go with Corvell Corporation and my claims adjuster, just to give them a little shout out here. My girls at Corvell, they are awesome. We're constantly in contact. They will take everything. I send them job descriptions whenever we have a case that's going to go through there. And I mean, it's just myself, the girls at Corbell, our doctors. One thing that I can't stress enough, get to know your doctors that you're sitting, that are on your panel. I go out to lunch probably once or twice a month with my doctors. You know, when I started, they were like, we don't even know who these people are. So get to know your doctors. Let them know what you can offer, because if they don't know, they're just going to slap, he's restricted on here. If they know that you're willing to work with them, before they even sign anything, before they even look at a job description, they'll ask me what I can do and what we can't do. So big process there.
Great point. So we've got light duty available.
Okay, when we get to the point where, well, in most cases, the nurse or the adjuster or both will ask the employer whether or not there is light duty available. Sometime, at some point in that claim, that question is going to be asked. And these are some of the responses that we get. First response being, working hinders the healing process, so I need my employees to be 100%. In actuality, I mean, if you know, most doctors, even before they schedule the surgery, will send the employee to physical therapy to get them moving, to make sure they continue to move. After surgery, soon after, within days, they are, if it's a shoulder, they're on a CPM machine. If not, they're scheduling the therapy very soon after. So, and physical activity is not going to hinder the process. It's not going to slow down the process and make them disabled longer. In fact, it will get them back to work a little bit sooner. As long as you stay within the restrictions that the doctor outlined, and as a supervisor, a direct department head or frontline supervisor, you have to make sure that the employee is working within those restrictions and not outside of them, you know, just to keep them safe. So they generally, you know, physical activity, well, it does not hinder the healing process. It actually makes it progress a little bit faster.
So Brent, that y'all have the light duty work program, have you seen the number of days that they are missing from work decrease?
So we have. I've been with the city of Douglasville about 2.5 years. When I first come on, we had an ACL tear that required full repair. That employee was out for almost 8 months, I believe. Not even 3 months ago, we had another employee did an ACL tear. That employee was on the job 6 days later. After his surgery, you know, after he went out for surgery, he come back to the job 6 days later, light duty. The gentleman actually walked into my office today. He's still got a minor limp. We've still got him on restricted duties. I still check in with him daily, but I mean, this was, you know, a couple weeks back that he had his surgery. So seeing the differences between the way it was managed prior to making the changes and now we're seeing it tenfold.
Excellent, excellent.
Here's a question from Freddie Wiggins. How do you communicate with an employee if the employee is retaining a lawyer?
Well, you can still discuss the employment with the employee even if they have an attorney. What you can't discuss is the workers' compensation claim, but he's still your employee. You can still communicate with them about their role as an employee. You know, we have them all the time. You're calling them about their health insurance. You may check in with them just, you know, just to see how they're doing. But as long as you're not discussing specifics about their workers' compensation claim, you're fine to communicate with them.
And generally, when they have an attorney, if it's a return to work issue, the adjuster is handling that issue with the attorney directly.
I think you had asked this question also about the light duty. Does it need to be provided within the employee's department and during the employee's regular shift? Absolutely not. You have a lot of freedom when it comes to this. The truth of the matter is you can put them in any position as long as it fits the restrictions. You can put them on any hours, any days, and the pay should match the light duty job. You do not have to pay them the same rate of pay that they were making at the time of injury. If the light duty physician pays a lesser amount, then workers' comp will pay a temporary partial benefits, which is 2/3 of the difference between what they were making prior to the accident and what they're making on their light duty job. So don't let that hinder you from putting them back to light duty if the specific department doesn't have a spot available.
We don't have any positions available is another response. And the truth is, yes, you do. You just have to be a little bit creative about looking across the departments to find tasks that the injured employee can do. You know, they could be odd jobs or maybe a project that you have been putting off because maybe you don't have enough people within that given department to do the task that it takes to get you to the point where you're trying to get. And that's the prime opportunity to use employees who are injured to, if you're starting a scanning project, we're getting ready to go paperless. You know, if you're doing something like that, they can scan, and they can, you know, do whatever you need done in order to get you to the point where you need to be.
Brent, do you have any comments on any specific positions y'all have think work? Or
I mean, light duty, whether it comes down to answering phones, the bottom end of the pile is they come set with me. I have audits. I have audits that I need to go over. I need to do, being, you know, the main risk management person for the city of Douglasville. I have tons of paperwork that they can help me with. Putting them into the safety guy's role or gal's role, it really helps. It kind of opens their eyes and sees how much paperwork and everything is getting created. So just having them come set with me. But I mean, we try to keep PD in PD. With that, their chief likes to have his people there, but maintenance and sanitation, you know, we offer their director to do it. If not, then we'll send it out amongst everyone else and see who needs somebody to either file or what have you. I mean, but we will accommodate 100% to have our people at work.
one other thing you might consider is training. I mean, this is just because they're on light duty, they could still do the training that they would have to do if they were on the job. So, you know, as long as it's not a physical training outside of their restrictions, but a lot of them do classwork, things that they have to do to keep their certifications. So consider that as well.
So from your perspective, is it financially advantageous to bring somebody back to work and pay them for doing a light duty job versus paying them workers' compensation for being off of work?
I think it is, because the bottom line is you're paying for them either way. You're either paying their salary or you're paying for workers' compensation. And then you're paying someone else to pick up the slack to do the job they're not able to do. So it's kind of saving you money, really and truly, to bring them back on light duty. It's just a win-win for everybody. The employee feels good about it. You feel good about it. We get them back to work a lot safer. You know, and there's also the myth about, well, they don't have the skill set to do a light duty job. As Brent mentioned, there's lots of things, you know, I don't know many people who can't file or shred or scan or, you know, we've had them work out there where we put, you know, a nail on a stick and let them walk around and pick up trash, as long as they're not bending, they're not lifting more than, you know, the 5-pound restriction or whatever. I mean, that's something that has to be done. So why not use the employees you have to do that?
And sometimes I think we kind of make a lot of assumptions about what people can and can't do, what their total skill set is, whether or not they have anything that's transferable to another department. Until we have a sit down and talk to people, you really don't know what they're capable of doing. You may have someone who's in the road department and maybe his job is just to hold the flag, but that doesn't mean that he's not computer literate. It doesn't mean that there aren't other things that he can do. So just have a sit down, have a conversation, and figure out exactly, you know, what their interests may be.
And to tail end on that, I mean, how many people actually know exactly what their employees do? If you're not spending the time with your employees, if it's, you know, even the good employees, the employees that come in, clock in, do their job, you never have to talk to them. you probably don't know them as well as you do your squeaky wheel employees that you constantly have to interact with. They may have a skill set that you don't know about that will progress in a different area. Maybe they got a job to pay the bills, but their area of expertise is somewhere else. So you never know until you actually sit down and talk to the employees as far as what they are capable of doing. So very much so.
So the things to consider when you're looking for tasks or light duty work that the employee can do is part-time. Maybe you can't work them 40 hours a week. You can only work them 20. Temporary jobs, temporary assignments in different departments. It could change every day. It can change every week. It can change based on need. Job sharing, alternative tasks from what they would normally do within their department, floater jobs, like I said before, going from department to department, and job modifications within their regular job.
So that's something you should look at probably first. Can you modify their regular job to make it light duty on a temporary basis? You'd be amazed. Sometimes it's just a matter of changing where they're not lifting this. They have a coworker helping them lift, and they're able to do the remainder of their job. So don't consider light duty to be anything other than a different job. It can be their regular job with modifications.
Even the time limit. One of our restrictions that we recently did with our doctors, one of our parks and recreation employees was not able to do a certain job over an extended period of time. That in my situation, that period was 5 hours. So I could still work him 4 hours at his regular position, and then had to switch him to a different position after that time frame. So I was still getting 4 hours worth of production from that employee. So make sure that you're looking at your restrictions and understanding that just because it says that he can't do this for more than 5 hours, that you can still do the 4 hours or the 5 hours worth of duty. Just have to switch his position or switch his tasks after that.
And the key steps in transitional employment is really what Brett's saying, focus on the employee, what they can do, not what they can't do. Think about, as we've talked about the other departments, think about skill enhancements. One of my favorite stories on a claim was we had a police officer who got injured, could not do police work, but he was very computer savvy, and he was able to come into the main office and do some computer work, download some programs, kind of clean up some stuff, kind of fix some things that needed to be fixed. And, he did a great job. He got a lot of satisfaction out of doing it because it's something he loved. So he was able to do something useful for the employer that made him feel good. The employers greatly appreciated it. So think about that. Mentoring is another good thing. It's like we talked about young employees that come in. You have somebody that's been there a long time. They know stuff that if you don't have someone that they can mentor and learn it, it probably will leave when they leave. So I always think about that. Think out of the box. It doesn't have to be a traditional 8-to-5 job.
Okay, and we have a few scenarios for Mr. Brent here. So Brent, an employee is released to return to work with restrictions that can be accommodated. What do you do as an employer?
So scenario one seems to be the perfect scenario. The employee is released back to me, and we can accommodate those within his department or whatever. We don't have to create anything new. This one here is, we understand that he has restrictions. We're going to accommodate. The main thing is stay in communications. Don't just, as much as I love Corvell and they do a fabulous job on communicating and following up with the employees, there's still restrictions there. Make sure that your directors and your supervisors they know those restrictions also, and they are not doing anything to hinder those restrictions or break those restrictions. But yourself, as risk management or what have you, make sure that you're checking in with that employee. Just stop by and ask them, hey, is everything okay? Are you able to perform this and all of this? Show them that you care. If just follow up with them and make sure that everything's good.
So scenario 2 is the employee returns to work with restrictions, but is having difficulty performing the task that the doctor has indicated he's capable of performing.
So this, you know, to hear it be told, we see this quite a lot. And employees believe that when they're injured, they're just going to go home and lay in bed and, you know, sit on the couch and watch Days of Our Lives or something with their wives or husbands or what have you. This scenario kind of is a negative effect of the system. It's the way that everybody's always perceived return to work and everything along these lines from an employee standpoint. With this one, I still keep my employees on the job. I may reduce their workload. If I've got them on a light duty, such as the employee that I was referring to earlier, I had them working 5 hours or 4 hours in their position, and then I was switching them. I may bring them into the office to answer telephones for that time, but we're going to go ahead and contact Corvell or your claims management and nurse case managers and all of this. We're going to try to get them back in with the doctor to get reevaluated. I'm not a doctor. I don't know if anything has changed with them physically or anything along those lines. The last thing that we want is for them to re-injure while they're there. So definitely monitor, reduce the work, the job duty, but still keep them there. You know, my whole thing is I'm not going to give in to them and just tell them to go home and we'll pay them. You know, even if they answer one telephone call, that's one telephone call that I didn't have to answer. I'm getting something.
So here's a question. If their job is modified or they are used in a light duty position, what is the liability on the employer if they irritate the injury, even if the employee goes beyond their restrictions without the knowledge of the employer?
An aggravation of that injury would be considered part of the injury. And if you have someone on light duty, they should kind of be monitored to make sure that they stay within their restrictions. Make sure the two of you have a good understanding of what he should and should not be doing so that he doesn't re-injure himself.
Proper management, I think, with the city of Douglasville, proper claims management. Understand that anytime that you have a work comp claim, you have the potential and a huge liability of a lawsuit. If it's mismanaged, if they perceive you as not caring, anything along these lines, you know, you see it on TV all the time and hear it on the radio, get a check. Take the time, focus more on that person and manage it. Make sure that your supervisors are managing it. Stay on top of it, because not only will the employee believe that you care, you're essentially protecting your municipality or county. So.
Okay. Scenario 3, an employee returns to work light duty and has been working for a while. He reaches maximum medical improvement and the doctor says that these restrictions are permanent.
So with this, the way that I handle this, you know, unfortunately, I haven't actually had to handle this one, but we would treat it as a reasonable accommodation request, as if we would an ADA compliance. If anyone has a different way on scenario 3, I would love to hear it myself, and I'm sure everybody else participating would love to hear it, but I would treat it myself as an ADA reasonable request, to where if I can't put them back in their position with that, then we try to find another position within the city that we can accommodate.
Okay, but just be mindful that light duty work should be transitional. You know, it should change to hopefully the point where they're at full duty. And don't get, a lot of people who I've seen counties that have, we're going to return everybody back to work no matter what. They do this and they do this for years. You can be 10 years in and yes, everybody's back at work, but you end up with 5 people in the control room in the jail and you only need 2, you know, so people have been working these light duty jobs for years. You got a police officer who's had a total knee replacement. He can't really be a police officer anymore. At some point you have to, as a county or a city, determine that either we have to put him permanently someplace else, or maybe we just can't accommodate him. We cannot make reasonable accommodations. That's when you call the adjuster and let us know. And the next step for us would be to try and resolve it via settlement.
So 4 is employees released to return to work without restrictions. Our favorite.
This is the key. This is definitely our best case scenario. You know, if you have to have restrictions, you want them to be able to fall within their assigned duty. But obviously, everybody's goal is no restrictions, and there's not really any other better way to say it. No restrictions.
So we'll talk a little about when you don't have a return to work program. And we understand sometimes, they're just not the jobs available. But from a workers' compensation side of the things, we have to continue paying benefits. The only way we can stop his weekly check is if he can perform his regular duty job, or benefits are exhausted, which can be 350 weeks or 400 weeks, depends on the scenario from the doctor. Or if the employee goes somewhere else to work, we can stop benefits, or we settle the claim. So not having a light duty job for the employee is going to increase the exposure to at least 350 weeks. So keep that in mind when you say no, that's what's going to happen. We talked a little bit, they are your most important asset. Their safety is your greatest responsibility. So at this time, we're going to open it up for questions or comments, or I would love to hear some others who've had return to work program and has some great success stories, or just some things that you're doing that maybe be unique that could be helpful to our other members. Does anyone have any?
Don't all write your questions at once. Or yes, please, everyone write their questions at once. If you don't volunteer, I'm going to volunteer some people. So come on, I'm sure you guys have questions or comments, examples that you want to provide. Please participate. I'm sure things that you are doing you might not think are special, but we'd like to hear from you. Let's see, Sherry Sales. We usually find that finance is our light duty place to send injured employees. Comments on that?
Stuffing checks. We do the same thing. Filing, scanning, stuffing checks, stuffing envelopes. Finance is a good place. It's great for the city of Douglasville. So.
Alton Wallace, what do you guys do for, you can write what you guys do for light duty. Amy Mitchell, why don't you write something that you guys do? Helen Gillard, I think, and Mr. Gillard, write something if you can. Lisa, please write something. Sam Traeger, write something. Let's get some interaction. Let's see. Sherry says, again, look at that. Dan, look in your email. I have a big question. Let's see what that is. Elton Wallace says he has. Alton, do you have them conducting training or participating in training? Sorry, bad connection. Sam Traeger. Light duty, like Brenda said, if possible, ride around and pick up trash. Thank you, Helen.
I don't know how many of you have recycle centers. That's another great place to put them. They can be in the little area where the cars come in and check them in and that type of thing. That's a pretty good light duty position.
Here's a question. We have employees whose work week is measured in a lot of different ways. For example, clerical works 40 hours per week. Fire EMS works 53 hours per week. Corrections detentions works 42.75 per week. Sometimes a doctor will permit the employee to work half a day or as tolerated. What is the number of hours given those FMLSA scenarios, can an employee still receive workers' compensation indemnity wages if they work a half their normal day?
Well, what we pay is going to be based on their pre-injury wages, whatever their average weekly wage was at the time of the injury, and then whatever they're able to earn for however many hours that they're going to work. So that calculation is 66 and 2/3 of the difference. So no matter how many hours they work, and they can work 4 hours a day or they can work 2.
It doesn't make a difference how many hours. It's really about the wages they got before the injury and the wages they got during the light duty.
So they would continue to get a partial workers' compensation check if they were working at reduced hours or reduced pay.
And I have a question for Brent. How do you get, what I hear is that the counties aren't able to get the department heads to agree or to participate in light duty. What did you do in order to get everybody on the same page?
So with us, it's a little bit easier for the city of Douglasville because we do the salary continuation, so it doesn't really matter. That employer, that director, they're still going to pay that employee regardless of what department that he's working in. It makes it easier for them if they get production in their department. So we kind of use that to our, so to say, our persuasion when we talk with our directors. Like, if you can accommodate his light duty in your department, at least you're getting some of the production out of the salary that you're paying. Salaries are already budgeted for all employees in local government, so that money's already accounted for. Hopefully they can get some of the production back. We kind of do a little thing where when we sit down with the upper management, either the city manager, mayor, or council, or anything like that, when I go through my accident review, I'll sit down with city manager and actually kind of throw a kudos out to that director. Our parks department picked up the PD guy that couldn't, he's now working security out at the parks until he can come back to full duty. And I'll throw a little kudos out, so kind of gives them a pat on the back to say, hey, this is what's going on.
Got another statement from Ty. While at the sheriff's office, they would sometimes use light duty officers for reception duty. We never knew that the pay could be reduced to the receptionist pay. Good info. Thank you, Ty. And Sam says, I was kidding. We try to put them back in their same department. Thank you, sir. Light duty is available. Andy Mitchell says. Lisa says, we actually had someone come back this past February from a knee injury, but luckily she was office, so her job was light duty. Haven't had a workers' compensation claim yet. Only been on the job for a year. That's still pretty good. We are in the process of updating our panel since I've started. Great job, Kimberly. And let the department head know that the light duty worker is being paid out of their department budget, and most department heads will find a light duty work for them. Excellent, David. Lisa says, we helped her with anything she needed as far as bending and stooping. So I think it's the person that's returned to office duty. So she wouldn't further hurt herself. Excellent, very good. I think it needs to be said that reducing a salary also reduces the morale. Boo for me. And that's what Sherry says. Very good.
One thing that LGRMS offers a great online training tool, the LGRMS U training.
Local Gov U?
Yeah. So if you have nothing else to do with your employees, especially for back injuries, stuff like that, there's some great ergonomics training and stuff on there. Nice little plug.
If that doesn't motivate somebody to go back to work, then they're really hurt. Anyhow. Anything else, ladies and gentlemen? Questions, comments? I got another here. Some public safety agencies like to place light duty workers in 911 dispatch, but if 911 center has NCIC terminals, restrictions apply. Very good. What else you guys got?
I think that's all. We're, Linda and I are always available for questions. And you'll hear from us wanting you to do the light duty work if you can. Like I said, we understand sometimes especially with cities, they're small and you may not be able to do that, but let's try our best. I think you'll see a difference just in work days. We were talking with Brent earlier, they do a health fair. They do several things to help keep their employees healthy. So look at light duty as a way to keep them healthy as well going forward.
Anything else?
No, I'm good.
Very good. Thank you guys so very, very much for your participation. Really appreciate the comments and the questions. As Brenda and Linda said, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and I'll forward your questions to them or others that might be able to assist you in whatever questions you have. But thank you very much for participating and we will talk to you later.